Greetings, everyone, and welcome to LRVS 2022. I hope you're all enjoying the events. And today I have the luxury of introducing a great individual by the name of Noah Bethel. He is the Vice President of Product Development at PdMA Corporation. He will be getting us acquainted with how to use reliability to offset supply chain. So without further ado, Noah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and hello everybody from sunny Tampa, Florida. I just wanted to say appreciate everything from the organization that put this together. It's obviously a big event, and we accept the challenge, and I hope that the presentation goes over well. So I'll come back at the very end and say hi again, but let me switch to the actual presentation and start with a little bit of an introduction on this topic. We've all been and PdMA is no different. As introduced, I oversee the product development side of PdMA Corporation, and we ourselves have been hit with a supply chain issue. And so from those of you in manufacturing and all the variety of different industrial sectors out there, whether it's petrochem, utility, paper, it doesn't matter. All of them are affected by this. And there's other things as well that are affecting us. So how do you use reliability to offset supply chain? Obviously, it's a subject near and dear to everybody here listening. And so let's just move right on into it. The agenda as planned, of course, it changes sometimes based on excitement over certain topics, but we can't overlook the impact of COVID on maintenance reliability. So I want to touch base on that as it applies to the supply chain. Of course, we're going to be focusing on the supply chain issue. That's always going to be an issue for us. Of course, we're gonna visit other hurdles that we have, which is like retirement impact on maintenance reliability. I wish that wasn't a continued influence, but every time I travel and visit industry, that's a conversation that pops up. And so understanding how that affects us is important. And the final two, which are kind of related, is data acquisition hurdles. And then finally, data analysis hurdles. Those two are also almost byproducts of the three first bullets. And so without further ado, let's move into the first subject. So COVID affected us all, and it certainly had an impact on the whole supply chain issue, and we can't overlook that. But if you think about, the things that make our plant reliable, things that have to be done, and I'm going to focus because our primary interest in the industrial sector is motor health, right? So our company manufactures test equipment to measure motors, and of course that's a big deal for us. So I'm going to be talking about plant reliability almost, around the theme of electric motors. So in an plant reliability subject, there's things that have to be done. Site visits have to occur. Some of you have multiple plants or individual plants. Either way, site visits have to occur to perform testing, to perform analysis. Training has to occur, to make sure your techs, your analysts, your management team are fully equipped to operate and maintain our plants at a full, reliable state. As I mentioned, testing, things have to occur out in the field where you're actually connecting technology to our assets, measuring their health, making sure they're operating at full, at peak health, right? Sometimes you have to have retesting, okay? So you have to have more than one person back up the data. Sometimes you test with multiple, there's motor testing, vibration, thermography, ultrasonics, oil analysis. There's all kinds of technologies that are part of our reliability program. A lot of times that takes more than one person in retesting as well. Group conversations, like a lot of times you're not making a decision on one and maybe a level 1 technician that needs a level 2 technician or an analyst to actually look at that data. So there has to be group discussions around the health of an asset. And then finally, management review and decision making. Sometimes that requires bringing people on site or being down to the actual asset and to feel and touch and those who are comfortable with the actual application or operation. So the problem with that is one little bug caused a big stoppage. Okay, it caused all those things to be very difficult to occur if stopped completely. We saw it, you saw it, I'm sure we're not alone. That really was the beginning of the supply chain issue. Okay, so the big bad of the supply chain issue, as we all are feeling, is there's no parts. Okay, if not no parts, limited parts, and you end up basically bidding against other companies to get the same parts. And it's not just parts that you need to manufacture, the technology or what you're manufacturing. It's the parts to support the equipment that actually runs the production lines. And so it was a kind of a double whammy, or no matter how it hit you, whether it was on your actual product that you're releasing to the industry, or whether it's actually the support equipment that help you make your product. It's just a big deal. So the supply chain is something that we were all affected by, and I just can't say enough. Look at the news, right? News from the press was pretty straightforward. There was ships, if not hundreds, thousands of ships lined up off the coast with no port to pull into. And these are parts that you needed, that we needed, that everyone needed to either, again, deliver a product or to make the product. And so it all was a big deal. In fact, we look at some of the Census Bureau studies back in August 2021, they were saying almost 60% of businesses of all sizes were experiencing the supply chain issue. So it didn't affect, just a few, it affected almost everybody. Okay. And it hasn't gotten any better. And speaking from a manufacturer, from sunny Tampa, Florida, we're still organizing around that supply chain issue. We're still planning around it. It has changed a lot of things we do. It changed our day-to-day operation. It changed the way we look for parts and how much further out we try to project parts. It's a big deal. And in fact, back in 2021, there was uncertainty as far as, the supply chain, whether it was going to return to any, level of normalcy, right? In fact, they were thinking that by the summer of 2022, we might start to see some normal, supply chain, performance. And I asked the question, were the experts right on that? And I can't say from sunny Tampa, Florida, we've seen a complete recovery, not even close. And so we continue to battle the day-to-day, the week-to-week battles and getting those parts. You guys are experiencing the same thing. And so what's interesting is to knowing we have those hurdles, can we apply our reliability knowledge in an effort to overcome that, right? Well, to make matters worse, it doesn't stop there, right? You've got the supply chain issue, but you've also got another issue that's causing our ability to recover from these issues a problem. You've got baby boomers, over 2 million on average, a year are retiring. So where are these people going? These are experts from our industry, from your plant, the gurus, as we like to call them, people who've been there and seen the plant develop, seen the applications, how they're used. They have in-depth knowledge of all the assets that they're testing, and it's just hard to lose these guys. Even worse in 2020, and I'm sure the COVID crisis and all that had something to do with it. But in 2020, another 3.2 million baby boomers retired. Now, this is not some small effect. Okay, well, I kind of touched base on how losing these guys is a big deal. Harvard University and Rand Corp basically said that the loss of these workers impacts the younger workers. It's not just loss of knowledge, it's loss of performance or productivity for the ones that are left behind, for the existing workers. In fact, they're estimated about a 1.1% reduction in the U.S. economy, on the per capita GDP as a result of losing these experienced workers. So what do we do about that? Well, we try to replace them, try to extract their information, their knowledge, and put it into the new hires and the younger generation of industrial technicians and analysts. Something else we're noticing is, and we have to pay attention to this, is student interest in industrial trades. We're sure it'll change, and as money follows the needs, there's a supply and demand for people just like there is parts. We think it'll change, but right now there's just not enough students that are going into the industrial sector, so they're at a premium. Right. And we're almost seeing this flip flop of blue collar jobs in terms of technical jobs, really replacing white collar in terms of the actual financial gain. So, money will make a difference, obviously. And so we look forward to the student interest shifting as the industrial sector, promotes the opportunities in an industrial sector to the new students and this kind of thing. We've seen a lot of variety of methodologies that customers use or companies use to attract new recruits. And some of the best we've seen was companies that team up with high school level students and allow them to, work summer jobs with the company, get interest in the industrial sector and find out what interests them. Not everyone is interested in go to a 4-year degree, but so there's just a variety of ways that we need to try to pay attention to make sure student interest is increasing. So what all this results in is a resource limitation, right? So with resource limitations, what can we do about that? Well, here's an example. All right. So, we're involved in test equipment. Everyone to provide reliability at a plant level requires assets to be tested. The problem is when you see in this example here to your left, the testing is dominating the resources, right? So we're getting out there, we're collecting the data. The data is critical to get. We have to get the data. The problem is you see how little of the time is spent towards analysis. And that's a problem. What can we do about that? Well, that's what we are talking about today. A solution would be to redirect those resources, and we'll go into some detail how that happens. But what if you could take some of that testing time back? And if you look at the upper right pie chart here, that if this was the smaller section, if we went from over 75% of our technicians' time testing to only less than 25% testing, it makes for a little bit more time for other things. All of a sudden now we can almost double our analysis time. And we think that's important because all too often we see data flowing in on assets that should have been flagged earlier, way earlier in the PF curve, as we talk about a lot, right? That's a big deal. If you can identify a fault early in the PF curve, then you've got a much better chance of getting it identified, fixed, without costing a lot of money, without causing an effect on production. So if you double your analysis time and allow your analysts to spend much more time looking at data and a lot less time testing data or just collecting or acquiring the data, that's a big deal. And in fact, you can see that leftover available is almost 50%, okay, where your technicians and analysts were completely wiped out of time before, and the majority of it was in testing. The way the industry is going today is to get some of that time back. Now, the question is, what do you do with the available time, okay? And you may actually extend your analysis further than that. But it's changing. Today it's changing where you're going to have a lot more resources to apply to the important stuff. And that's a big deal. So some of the hurdles that you're faced with now that are going to give you this time back and allow you to, in the post supply chain issue, and again, let's go back and revisit that whole supply chain thing and remind ourselves that when we're having trouble getting parts, then let's try to maintain reliability at the utmost level so we don't have to replace parts. We'll visit that throughout the presentation. But following that, when you're talking about baby boomer retirement and the reduced number of people coming into the industrial sector with qualifications and all that, we need to figure out how to better utilize the resources we have. And here's an example of a problem. We got a young technician here with an infrared camera, great tool. Everyone needs to be using those kind of tools, but he's in front of an open cabinet. There's a safety issue, and I guarantee there's more than one person involved in doing this acquisition. Most all safety electrical requirements have somebody, behind this person attached to them with a rope or something to make sure that, everyone's being safe. This is not a small deal. Right? But let's see if we can solve this with, instead of going from a 2 or a 3-man operation to a 1-man operation. Get some of those resources back. The gentleman on the right, you can see, is using windows. Okay, instead of having to open that cabinet, placing everyone in an electrical safety area, making sure that the safety requirements are in place, multiple personnel, we can fall back to one person getting the same good data to analyze these assets. Okay, another problem is greasing, right? Bearing oils, bearing grease, every plant has it, every plant needs it, right? Can we improve that? Instead of just going to every asset and spending time filling with grease, can we actually do it intelligently? Can we actually have someone actually do a quick measurement of whether or not it even needs grease? That's a big deal. Reduce the amount of time that someone's spending doing these grease routes or these oiling routes and get that time back. And that's, again, our whole goal is to try to get some of that time back. Electrical testing, which is, of course, right in our wheelhouse, right? So this is a very common place to find your technicians when they're trying to collect electrical data. Again, like the infrared technician, this is a major electrical safety area. You can see the PPE that's being worn in an effort to be in that environment. It's a 2-3-man operation with a lot of potential, work orders and tag outs if necessary, and a variety of things going on. Okay, that's a problem. The answer: test access panel. Similar to your infrared window, a test access panel allows you to basically walk up with technology, connect to the outside of the cabinet, collect all the same data, right? And then walk away. It's a 1-man operation with no PPE. And so that's kind of a big deal. I say no PPE, not to the extent that you see the gentleman in the left, right? So we've all, if you've never been in one of those suits, volunteer to get in one, and do a little sweating and make sure you understand that how difficult that can be. So a lot of ways to reduce that. Another problem, we've got people that need to be out in the field doing tests, performing tests. It's a resource requirement. Are they coming from in-plant? Are you bringing service companies in to get it done? Does it require someone in-house to do some escorting? Well, the other thing is, if it requires one, does it require more? Do you want more people involved in a decision? For those people to show up and make a good decision on a critical asset, sometimes you're not willing to go off just one person, just the technician. So you bring in the experts, right? Well, this thing called COVID has changed a lot of that. A lot of times these experts aren't available. They're not in the office, working from home, just not available, right? And although a lot of that's behind us now as far as the pandemic, a lot of it is, that memory of those issues and finding the resources and getting the people available in the field have not gone away. And the answer? Global communication, right? Let's get people out there with permanently installed technology, and examples like a PdMA, right? The permanently installed motor test equipment, which directs that information back to a central monitoring station that could be on site, it could be off site, a variety of places within your company that would work and function. That's a big deal. And even the semi-retired, baby boomer who's at home drinking tea in the backyard can still be looking at data and helping you analyze that. And that's not a small thing anymore. I can't tell you the number of I call them semi-retired baby boomers, because they're retiring, but they're working part-time and accessible all hours of the day and making plenty of good retirement income to make sure and continue on their adventure in life. So those are just some of the data analysis hurdles, some of the personnel hurdles that we have to be concerned with. So global communication is not a small deal. Again, with the whole goal of being so limited in parts that we have to be reliable to overcome that, right? That's the main goal. So global communication is a big deal. Down in the bottom right, you can see the mobile phone, right? So many people have access to mobile apps. For someone that's walking in the field, walking on the beach, in the back porch, to be alerted to the critical asset that is suddenly entering an alarm state. That's not a small deal. That happening from a mobile phone. The data can be communicated to a centralized analysis lab. M&D centers are propping up in a lot of companies, specifically the utility industry, if they're on board today. So these multiple utility facilities can be at a central location. The data can be at a central location, so experts can be looking at that data and helping make decisions from far away. Or even a remote motor reliability or a motor repair shop, right? A lot of times the experts that you have installing your motors, a lot of times that expertise comes from a motor shop, right? So wouldn't it be great that not only do you have a centralized, analysis lab looking at your data, not only do you have a semi-retired baby boomer looking at his phone analyzing data while he's on the beach with his family, but you also have motor design experts or motor field engineers, like you see in the bottom left, looking at data from a motor repair shop. They delivered the motor to you, they have all the history, and to have them step into to a communication protocol so that they can look at data and give their assessment, it's priceless. And so these are the kind of things that global communication allows you to take advantage of in the post-COVID and existing supply chain world, where you have to be reliable because you may not have a lot of parts to repair with. So cloud-based technology is what we're kind of leaning towards in global communication. The cloud really is, I understand it's a cybersecurity hurdle that you have to get your IT involved and get overcome. I can tell you this, from being involved in industrial maintenance for many years, the same resistance to technology existed for wireless. Okay, so no way was certain organizations going to get involved in wireless technology, too much of a security risk. A lot of that has gone away. Today, they've figured that out. They've overcome that. They've got people involved in security, and they're much more comfortable now in establishing a wireless base of communication amongst the maintenance and reliability teams. Well, cloud technology is in that same transitional point. Okay, a lot of companies are resistive from a cloud technology. One thing we have to remind them of: this is a maintenance data. Okay, it's not necessarily operational. Okay, so a lot of companies are going dual network. They're going a maintenance network and an operations network. If they have to separate those for cybersecurity concerns, which allows you to communicate at a global level or an internet or a cloud level to multiple analysts, then that's the good solution. But present these possibilities to your team to make sure you're moving in the direction of optimizing your communication for analysis. So interplant communications. If you've got cloud-based solutions, you can have people at home working, you can have people at work, on site, as well as with a little bit of a LOL or haha on vacation, right? Again, I always bring up those semi-retired baby boomers who are great resources. They know your applications, and just simply giving them a little bit of a data from a far off vacation location, they can still be helpful for you to make big time decisions on your critical assets. Integration support. As much, we build electric motor test equipment, and we recognize how critical that is for, asset health. However, we're not the only technology. We recognize, again, there's oil, there's ultrasonics, there's infrared, there's so many other technologies that you're relying on. Integration into a dashboard level of software is becoming a big deal. So your analysts, your experts for data, don't have to go into 6 or 7 different technologies necessarily to help analyze data. They can literally do it from one interfacing software. So that's a big deal. Look into that. Find out how to make more efficient the access to the data. You got everything from, I'm talking about a CCOM API. These are APIs that allow data from technology like ours to interface with your dashboard. Equipment asset management softwares that are actually teaming up with dashboard softwares and making sure that they're giving their analysts very good access. And then third-party support. Even though it's important to get your experts, but what if the guru that's traveling overseas or traveling to sunny Tampa, Florida to hang out in Clearwater Beach, what if his phone's off? Well, again, access to motor repair shops where experts exist that know a lot about the asset that you're trying to, it's nothing to reach out to them and say, hey, can you sign on and look at this data with us? That is becoming a real thing today, okay? You're not far from the expert. So at the end of the day, the question you have to ask yourself is, when we're in a post-COVID environment where resources are hard to get a hold of, they're not always on site and providing support. In a post or an existing supply chain world where you may not have parts, okay, it is so important for reliability right now. There's probably never been a more critical time for reliability. And so the bottom line is increased reliability means extended life. And if you can extend the life of your applications, then you don't need spare parts, okay? And that's a big deal. Most of us still have some spare parts, but we're running out of them. So we need to make sure and be efficient, be reliable, so that we're not using those spare parts up. For those of you in the reliability industry, I can tell you this: it's never been a brighter time or let's say a job security environment. Okay, reliability is at a premium. Again, a lot of that's being driven by the supply chain issue. You don't have spare parts. We have to be running to stay competitive and to stay in business, and so we have to be reliable. All of a sudden, you're getting what you need to take that test, to get the data, to get the software. Never a better time. And it also, if you can take advantage of these new technologies and the new communication protocols, what this allows is a renewed O&M relationship. A lot of times operation and maintenance are very separate. I talked about having a different network. That still applies. But the fact that you can get some of the time back to look at data and make good decisions, not just, hey, we've got to get the data, we've got to run out there and get it, or we're running blind, okay? That data is streaming in. You have access to look at the data. You're going to get some time back. Okay, utilizing that to reach across the aisle and start, working with maintenance and operations together to make better decisions and to know when things are questionably reliable, looking at your spare parts, knowing what you have and knowing what assets cannot fail. And so you start spending the right resources that are available now because you're using newer technology towards keeping your assets reliable. The final comment there: work smarter, not harder. And so our goal is to put the right people in place, utilize them efficiently, make our equipment more reliable, all that leading to no need for spare parts. And that's how you use reliability to get through this supply chain nightmare. So with that being said, I realize there's not going to be time for questions or anything really, but we appreciate your time. And from that, I'll turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Noah. That was a great conversation. I do have a question for you. So, with the baby boomers retiring and all of that, we noticed there's a bridge that needs to be crossed, especially when it comes to, getting more people in the workforce. Do you think it would be a good idea for us to even go earlier than high school? Let's say like middle school and elementary school, do like job fairs to actually get kids into, sciences and, manufacturing and industrial work.
I would totally agree, and I recognize that there's always going to be parental involvement, and they're going to want to know what the conversation is, and that's important. But I could give you a case example in Charleston, South Carolina, where an aluminum facility went into and it's at a high school level, and they just presented the whole industrial maintenance and reliability environment. Not all kids are set to be computer programmers. A lot of kids like to put their hands on machines. They like to be in an industrial sector. They want to feel good about fixing or correcting things. If you get their attention early, it's night and day difference. So you got kids that basically what they end up doing is they join the company, and work. As soon as they're graduating high school, they're literally joining the company, working with the company, being paid, and then going to school 2 days a week, right? Paid for by the company. So you got kids that by the time and again, nothing against a 4-year degree. There's a lot of us that need it and have to. And if you're into a deeper engineering you're going to have to go through all that school. But these kids are 2 years out of high school, being extremely involved in industrial maintenance and reliability. And it's gone a full cycle at this point. Now it's actually the plan I was telling you about, multiple department managers came from that environment. So if there is any opportunity to go at a middle school level and say, hey, guess what they do in industrial maintenance? They fix things, they work on things, and give examples of what that is, I think you could start that conversation. Great question.
Okay. So right now we will turn it over to anyone or any questions in the chat. I'm going through. Thank you, Sonia, for your comment. Thank you very much. We'll give them a few more seconds to see if any more questions come out. I don't see any more. But Noah, thank you very much. It has been amazing speaking with you as well as watching your presentation. I definitely look forward to seeing you present more LRVS as this is your first one. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Because I know we did. But thank you again, and everyone else. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.